Alright, so since I have made, I think, at least 3 videos on Forza Motorsport and its shortcomings and how that game just continues to be a downward spiral pretty much, I figured I would also make a video now talking about Gran Turismo, because I don't want to seem like I'm a Gran Turismo glazer and I just hate Forza Motorsport because I want it to fail and I want Gran Turismo to succeed. The absolute truth is I actually do not like where both games are at right now. And in fact, one thing that you guys might not know is that to this day, I still have not really played Gran Turismo 7, which I know might be a shocker considering I'm the Gran Turismo guy, according to some people. But yeah, I still have yet to play Gran Turismo 7. I don't own the game. I did play it briefly when I visited Kourou in 2022, so I could somewhat get a feel of the handling, how the game feels, and obviously I've watched a bunch of other people on YouTube and stuff talk about the game, play the game. So at this point, I feel fairly confident in what the game is and why I don't like it and why I still to this day wouldn't like to buy it. And in this video, I kind of wanted to get into the reasons of why. But what's really important for you guys to understand is that the way I interact with racing games is very different to most other people. So for the longest time, I would say like ever since 2022 as well, like basically since I started to do racing games full time, I didn't really play racing games in my free time anymore. Since I spent so much time playing racing games on streams and trying to do something interesting with racing games on the stream, I didn't really play anything casually anymore in my free time. Very, very rarely is that something I ever did. And that changes the way I interact with racing games and changed the way, or it changed what I'm looking for in a racing game pretty much. So for example, it became really important to me how the single player mode was structured. So before I was doing streaming full time, I didn't mind playing racing games in multiplayer. It's something that I did every now and then, particularly for the Forza Horizon is something that I played in multiplayer. But with the kind of content that I make, which is to say I make weird content, there's also something I need to point out. My channel, I think, or at least my main channel, is very, very different to other people's racing game channel. So a lot of racing game channels on YouTube, especially the more bigger ones, they're kind of just about providing a service, basically, is kind of how I see it. So they basically just update you on the newest releases, the newest updates, that kind of thing. This is not something I ever was really interested in. This is something I kind of dabbled into briefly in 2016, where I did a lot of like content on Forza Horizon 3 at the time, and I reported on its updates and its release and blah blah. And that was when I realized this is just not something I want to do. It's not content I enjoy doing. And so these days, I think I produce very, very weird but also interesting racing game content. So a lot of my videos are about weird challenge runs or just playing games in a weird way. With Gran Turismo 7, you cannot do any of that. I think none of the bread and butter kind of content that I do on my main channel is something that I would be able to do in Gran Turismo 7, because the main career mode, if you can even call it that, is so linear. It basically leaves zero room for creativity. And that is kind of like the main thing for me. Like, I want to play racing games in a creative way. And I need racing games to give me enough flexibility to really make those or come up with those creative playthroughs. And Gran Turismo 7 just, you're not able to do that there. Like, the developers have a very specific set way how they want you to interact with the game, and only that. So the cafe menu books are probably the easiest example for this. They have very specific cars that they want you to use in a very set order. Like, you cannot skip any cafe menu books as far as I'm aware. And it just makes the entire single player extremely linear, to the point where I would say even the newest Forza Motorsport does this better, and would be something I would probably prefer playing and making content on as a result. Now, I still don't, because I still don't like the direction that Forza Motorsport has been going, and generally it felt like a massive reduction over what we had before. But I would say in terms of just single player content, I think Gran Turismo 7 is actually worse off than Forza Motorsport, and it's the main thing why I just have not been interested in the game, because the way I interact with racing games is replaying them a lot in different, unique ways. It's kind of where I extract the most amount of enjoyment out of a racing game. And I think this also extends to you guys watching my videos as well. Like, you guys would not enjoy watching me just play Gran Turismo 7 now, like 4 years after release, like everyone else. Like, that is just not interesting. Some of you guys would probably stick around and watch it, but I would imagine like most people would rather me do something else. And Gran Turismo 7 just doesn't really offer any opportunities to really do that, in my opinion. But obviously the single player is just one portion of the game. The other portion of the game, and probably the way bigger focus of the game in general, is the multiplayer. Now, as I said earlier, back then I did play various racing games in multiplayer. These days I could not care less about multiplayer. It's something that I just kind of became interested in less and less. And from what I heard and read and understand, the multiplayer of Gran Turismo 7 is also not as interesting with the weekly and daily, monthly events that they add to the game. It seems like they don't actually make use of the car's entire car roster. It's very basic stuff very often. They don't really use all of the cars that are available in the game, and it leads to very repetitive, very samey event structures. And also just generally the multiplayer racing against other people, like the PvP. I'm just generally not a PvP person. I do not get any satisfaction out of knowing that I'm better at someone else at a random video game. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter, and it doesn't make me feel better. I would always just prefer challenging myself in doing like weird challenge runs or replaying games on a harder difficulty. Because that way I get the feeling that I am getting better, and I'm better than I was before. And beating other people in multiplayer PvP just, it does nothing for me, basically. So the entire other portion of Gran Turismo 7, the multiplayer half, just does not interest me anymore. It's just not something that I very much enjoy over the single player, which, as I stated earlier, is also not as interesting. Now, there's some other stuff to talk about Gran Turismo 7 that I feel like other people have done a way better job of explaining. In particular, I want to point to the channel Ruffle Waffle. He has done a really good job of really deconstructing Gran Turismo 7 as a game. As it turns out, in terms of just game design, like how Gran Turismo 7 works as a game, it's just not as good. So you have stuff like the roulettes, which you could point out and say, well, hey, Gran Turismo 4 and Gran Turismo 3 actually had random car rewards as well. But I think the way Gran Turismo 7 does them is just way less interesting. Like, I don't care about getting like a bunch of credits or like a random part that you can only use for one car. It feels like very much the same thing as the wheel spins from Forza Horizon, and everyone is complaining about the wheel spins, so they just constantly give you stuff that you don't want or don't care about, like clothing or random cars you already own, or could just buy yourself with relatively little credits or low credit rewards. And I honestly feel like Gran Turismo 7's roulette wheels are no different. It's the exact same thing with the exact same issues, when most of the time you just get something you do not want and do not care about, and the entire pool of rewards is just so diluted with worthless stuff. So that's like one thing. The other thing is brand invitations, which I think is actually like the worst thing I've ever heard about a racing game. So in Gran Turismo 7, you cannot just outright buy any car in the dealership, which in of itself is fine. That has been a thing in pretty much all Gran Turismo games, that there's just certain cars you can only get through certain means. But what they've come up with in Gran Turismo 7 is brand invitations. So in the roulette wheels that I talked about earlier, sometimes, if you're lucky, or unlucky, I guess, is you can win a brand invitation. And what this is, it basically allows you to buy a certain car, depending on the kind of invitation you got, for a limited time only. What is this? Like, the game is basically just arbitrarily locking certain cars behind a roulette reward that is not giving you the car, but the ability to buy the car. And more often than not, it's cars that are extremely expensive. So you might, especially early game, get the brand invitation, but you have no means of actually getting the money in a short amount of time. So the brand invitation just expires after, like, I think 2 weeks or whatever. And then that's that. You get nothing for it. You get nothing to show for it. And who knows if you're ever gonna get that same brand invitation again. Like, I think this is like the most anti-player addition I've ever seen to any racing game ever. But regarding to like when it comes to more gameplay focused things, you, for example, have one major issue that I have with the game is that every race seems to be a rolling start. Standing starts seem to be only reserved for multiplayer races, which I find so weird. Earlier games, like for example Gran Turismo 4, they had a mixture of both. So some races were rolling starts, some races were standing starts. And I like having both mixed in. Like, I don't want to just have one thing. Though I would say if we can only have one thing, I would actually prefer standing starts. Because with the rolling starts that pretty much are everywhere in Gran Turismo 7, the entire game basically turns into Ridge Racer, where you're at the very far end of the pack and you spend the entire race just trying to catch up to the guy in first. It just changes the dynamic of the race a lot, to a point where I just feel like it's not as fun anymore. I feel like having both is just, and mixing them together just makes for a more fun game. And yeah, I think with everything that I mentioned now, I hope at least it's pretty clear that I think Gran Turismo 7 just has inherently bad game design. There's way more that I could mention. Once again, Ruffle Waffle has made an entire series of videos that you can check out if you want to, if this is interesting to you. But yeah, overall, it's just like so many issues that are still in the game that feel like inherent game design issues. And I think another point is also that overall, when it comes to the game itself, when I played it briefly at Kuru's place, it feels like I have already played the game. Because, like, let's be honest to ourselves, in so many ways, it's just Gran Turismo Sport 2. So many things have been clearly copied over from Gran Turismo Sport, and I think, honestly, the most egregious thing is probably the HUD. Now, you might say, dude, it's just the HUD. Who cares, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think, like, honestly, I cannot come up with any other game, let alone racing game, where the HUD was literally copied over from one game to the next, one by one. This just feels so lazy to me. Especially because I want to point out that Gran Turismo Sports, and also by extension Gran Turismo 7's HUD, is not perfect. It is so cluttered. There's so much information on display that, for the most part, you don't even need. Like, for example, why do you still get information about your fuel and tire wear on races that don't have fuel and tire wear enabled? Like, there's just so much on the HUD at any given time that I honestly just don't need. I honestly don't need. Like, you can really cut down the HUD a lot, or better yet, make it so that you can enable or disable certain elements. I'm pretty sure that's something you can do in the game, but not to the extent that you can really declutter the HUD. And then, even then, you would have to basically turn things on and off again all the time based on what kind of race you're doing at any given time. So safe to say, like, I don't think the HUD in Gran Turismo Sport was anywhere near perfect. And it definitely didn't warrant them just copying over the same HUD without any reasonable changes. And what this feels like to me is that it just feels like I'm playing Gran Turismo Sport again. I'm just playing a slightly upgraded version of it. Like, it doesn't really feel like the kind of jump where they made like some difference, where there's like a massive difference in like how the game feels. Especially because I don't think they added any music. Like, if the music is mainly just from previous games, like especially Gran Turismo 5 and 6. Like, there's fairly little unique music in the game, which once again makes Gran Turismo 7 just feel more like an extension of Gran Turismo Sport. And I felt this way with a lot of things. And since I did already play Gran Turismo Sport and I actually kind of enjoyed it to some extent, I just never really saw the reason to pick up GT7. It felt like, it would always feel like to me I'm just kind of getting the same experience again. Now, one major difference with GT7 compared to GT Sport, and this is going to be a me thing. I think no one can relate to this except for me, but I'm just going to explain this. So in Gran Turismo Sport, you had fairly elaborate camera settings. Now, I am someone who primarily enjoys playing racing games in third-person view with a controller. And I genuinely think I don't care what kind of game you're making. If it's an arcade racer, a simcade, or sim, by default, your game should be enjoyable on a controller. And I think on a controller, third-person perspective just feels better to use. Maybe this is just how I grew up playing racing games and it's just kind of what I'm used to. But this is like the default way how I would actually prefer playing a game. I enjoy playing in cockpit view. I enjoy playing with the wheel as well. But by default, I think personally, I always prefer the experience on a controller in third-person view. And I think Gran Turismo Sport did a much better job of accommodating this, because one thing that I really don't like about Gran Turismo, and this is a very split thing, some people don't care, other people actually prefer the way the modern games do this, But it's the stiff camera. And it's because I feel like I get less feedback from the car if the camera is super stiff and locked behind the rear of the car. And also, after a while, it actually does make me nauseous. After a while, I notice that I get a slight headache because the camera is just moving around really fast and way too much. If the camera is more smooth, like in the earlier Gran Turismo games, or for example in Forza Motorsport, I don't have this issue. And in Gran Turismo Sport, you could actually set up the camera so that it feels more smooth, like in the older games. And in Gran Turismo 7, you have the exact kind of settings. Like the settings menu is exactly the same, but you cannot apply the same values. Like you can only get it kind of there, but at that point, the camera is still extremely stiff. Does that make sense? Like it's the same settings menu, but you cannot apply the same values. And so Gran Turismo Sport's camera feels better to me than Gran Turismo 7's, and I will always have to deal with the stiffness of the third-person camera, which I just generally don't like, and as I said, does make me a little bit nauseous and gives me a slight headache after a while. But now getting to something that I think is a little bit more relatable, and this is something that I feel like I should have called out way earlier, but Gran Turismo 7's update support has been awful. And I'm not sure if this is a hot take, but it's been just not interesting. I think once every month or every 2 months, I don't even know. I think it is actually once every month. They have these weird posts where they like tease the cars in like a dark environment and then they reveal them. And every single time, I'm just like, who cares? Like, actually, like, genuinely, who cares? This is maybe something a bit controversial, but I think there is such a thing as having enough cars in a racing game. A racing game does not get better just because you throw more cars at it. And I think Gran Turismo 7 has enough cars in it. I do not need more cars. I think there's enough coverage. In fact, Gran Turismo 7 has a problem with even using the cars that are already in the game. Like, there's so many cars in the game that you find absolutely little to no use for. So I don't understand why they keep throwing more cars at the game, especially cars that people don't care about. So as of the making of this video, in the last update that they added to the game, they added a Lancer, not a Lancer, it was like a Lancia Delta rally car. Now I love this car. I think this is a fantastic car. It's one of my favorite rally cars. It's super iconic. It's just that in this game, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose because the rallying in this game, let's face it, is pretty bad. It basically works exactly like the regular races, but with kind of not fun physics and handling. In Gran Turismo Sport, you had this as well, like the rally mode, and I thought it was okay as a diversion if you just kind of wanted to shake things up a little bit and do some rally like every now and then. But it just has not evolved whatsoever in Gran Turismo 7. It is exactly the same. They have not really expanded the rally mode at all, outside of, I think, adding like some snow tracks that we were still missing in Gran Turismo Sport. But it's just not interesting. It doesn't feel unique enough. It doesn't feel fun enough. So adding a rally car to the game instead of actually improving the rally mode feels kind of tone deaf. And I feel this way with pretty much every update that they add. Like, instead of actually improving the fundamentals of the game and adding more interesting tracks, they just keep throwing these irrelevant cars at the game that I just never give a crap about. And I don't know why people always make such a big deal out of these updates and post them everywhere and share them everywhere, because I just never give a crap. And whenever they do add new tracks to the game, especially when it's legacy tracks from older games, like for example, the best example I think is Grand Valley Speedway. They changed so much to the point where they're beyond recognition. And some of these changes I can appreciate and maybe might even be better. But at the same time, it always just feels like whenever they add a new track, it's a mixed bag. And it's just no general consensus of like, hey, these tracks are really good. And this is something that I have to actually praise Forza Motorsport for. When they added Fujimi Kaido, that thing was a slam dunk. Everyone loved that track. It felt like a genuine upgrade over the Fujimi Kaido we've last seen in, I think, Forza Motorsport 4. Like, the layout was all the same. It feels the exact same, but it just hit so much better. Because it just felt like an overall upgrade. And Gran Turismo 7 tracks that they bring back never feel like upgrades. They feel like changes. And I think this is just kind of like, overall, once again, like, I just haven't ever really been happy with the update support on Gran Turismo 7. It just feels like one step forwards, one step backwards kind of deal. And overall, I just don't think the game is in a massively different state than when it launched in. Maybe some of the microtransaction stuff has been improved. The economy maybe has been improved. But nothing that really changes the game itself, that makes the game itself more fun and enjoyable, if that makes any sense. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is that I think overall, as a simulator, Gran Turismo 7 is amazing. Like, the graphics are fantastic, the attention to details are amazing on both the tracks and the cars, the handling is great. Like, if you are looking for a simulator, I think Gran Turismo 7 genuinely is one of the best ones you can get. But as a game, it just feels extremely half-baked. And one thing I say all the time on my streams, and if you haven't heard me say this, I'm just going to repeat myself. I am a gamer first and a racing car enthusiast second. I would always rather play a good game that I enjoy than watch some kind of race, for example, or play a simulator. And so when it comes to racing games, I'm always looking for a fun game. Like, I want a game that is well designed, well put together, and I can even apologize suboptimal handling. Like, for example, I enjoy Need for Speed Shift 2. That game has awful handling, awful physics, but it just has so much to it that I find it still enjoyable as a game. Whereas I feel like, once again, with Gran Turismo 7, it is a fantastic simulator, but it feels like, and this might be my hottest take ever, but just like almost every single simulator out there, it's just not a good game, right? Like, a lot of simulators, a lot of the popular simulators like iRacing or Automobilista or whatever, like all of these, or at least the ones that I've tried, just aren't good as games. Like, they just don't have this game aspect to them where I enjoy building up a garage and competing in tournaments and improving and upgrading and, you know, that kind of thing. Most simulators are just kind of like get in and drive, which to me is just, to me feels like lazy game design. It feels like they didn't want to design a game, which is fine, I guess, if they just want to be a sim for like car enthusiasts. But at that point, it's just not for me, right? At that point, it's just not my kind of jam. And Gran Turismo 7 falls under that umbrella for me. So yeah, I think this kind of sums up everything that I could come up with when it comes to Gran Turismo 7 and why I'm not playing it. But I want to know, do any of you guys relate? Is anyone else in the same boat where you're not playing Gran Turismo 7 because it doesn't really feel like a game? And also all the other things that I mentioned in this video. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, I just feel like I should have probably talked about this a little bit sooner, because I feel like I kind of came across as a Forza Motorsport hater, and Gran Turismo is so good, when, once again, in reality, like, I don't play Gran Turismo 7, I don't like Gran Turismo 7. But yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for listening, and until next time, take care.